Welcome to Lost in Theaters, the podcast where we talk about movies that have slipped through the cracks of pop culture. My name is Rachel. I just had a really big idea. That's why I paused. There was that, half second where I was
felt like I just zoned into your brain really hard. That was really surreal.
I just had this idea. I was like, the cracks of pop culture. We should have earthquake sounds.
I think this is a new record for being derailed.
I'm Rachel and this is Ruth. Okay. Hi folks.
Wow, I just botched that intro.
No, I felt like I had to explain. I don't
know if that was conveyed.
I
just feel like sounds. I was consumed by your brain.
You know? Or volcano. What does a volcano sound like? It's more like
Look,
ocean.
If you want to do the audio editing, go for it.
Anyways, okay. This week's movies. I want to give some backstory because we're in the business of education, I think.
We are? Who is we?
You and I, the podcast. We're sort of spreading the word about movies, right?
Okay,
It's not quite. Is it word of mouth? Are podcasts word of mouth? I don't think so.
I mean, strictly speaking, yes.
Yeah, but
word of computer?
It feels very different. Anyway, so we're, spreading the word about movies that people haven't really heard about.
Word of digit.
Oh,
that includes sign language.
Wow, I like that. Anyways, the first movie that I went to look into this week. I thought I was going to watch a movie called Li'l Abner from the 1940s.
I don't like that.
Well, the thing is, the name Abner is not very common. And I was like, I'll be interested to know what the deal is. And I went to go to watch it, and there was the song at the beginning. It was it's the 40s, so there's a song explains, he's a guy and he's the best looking guy in town, except the girls, he's just nervous of girls because and children. So he doesn't go on any dates because but he's good looking, and it's a whole thing. And apparently it's a comic strip. So this is based on an old comic strip, the 40s. In the 40s, it was a comic in the 40s, and people, and this movie, we're not talking about this movie. Because the first 5 minutes, the racism was so strong that they had someone who was playing a Native American, and it was just so bad. I was like, this is not the film for me, I think. It was not great. And then, there was even a moment where I was like, well, maybe I should I don't know. I watched, what's that other one I watched that was rough? We talked about it last season, and last episode as well. I mentioned it. Alan Quartermain, right? Which was quite poorly representing the black community. And so this one, I was like, I don't know. Maybe there's something. And then the old grandma who was talking said, "Hairless Joe, would you do something for me?" And the biggest man I've ever seen comes out of this cave with artificial hair plastered on his face to make him super duper hairy. And he's just got this prosthetic nose sticking out of this wall of hair. And I think it's a reference to the comics. And I just thought, something is happening here, and I feel bad watching this. It was like, this is not. So, Li'l Abner might be for some people, but we will not be reviewing Li'l Abner on this podcast.
Thank you for that announcement.
I felt like people should know, which drove me to our next film,
which we will be talking
about. Called Alex and Eve. This movie came out in 2015 or 2016.
This also sounds bad.
I didn't. Zero spoiler section. We have to take a visit to the Chaucer scale.
Oh, okay.
for those who remember the Chaucer scale, we'll explain by explaining Chaucer. Chaucer himself
let's just do that.
Chaucer himself says that if he were to depict these characters any differently, he would be lying to you. And what the result is that he had some stories that have some body imagery and profane comments.
Understatement of forever.
Our father would call them a bit racy, and they have some, profanity in them as well, and they're just like...
Which doesn't come into the Chaucer scale. That's not a Chaucer scale thing.
Okay. Fine. It's just... So, yes, we take a visit to the Chaucer scale here. And I would put it at, text-wise, it's not the Miller's Tale, which is one of Chaucer's tales. It's definitely it's not a Boccaccio either. I'm trying to think
That's also good.
That's also good.
I think Boccaccio might be worse.
Boccaccio, I think, is usually a little more... it is, any book suggestions, Ruth?
I don't know.
You
want me to remember past
I
events?
haven't read Inferno. I've read The Inferno by Dante, but I haven't read the Da Vinci Code. That's the one.
The new Inferno.
The Da Vinci Code. There's actually another book called Inferno, which is based on The Inferno. Well, actually, it's probably the other way around. What? Dante's is probably Inferno, and the new one is The Inferno.
Oh my gosh.
Just spiraling here.
Your point.
I know. There's some sex scenes.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is, just
Are
heads
these
up.
Explicit or what?
I know. I'm trying to.
Is this like something children would even notice?
Yeah, they would.
Sometimes that just doesn't happen.
Yeah,
which is clever.
It's a rom-com. So I don't even know what book would this be like on the Chaucer scale? I don't.
My brain is like wiping itself clean as you're speaking. Like I cannot remember any text I have ever written read? Or your past sentences. It's really...
That's bad, Ruth. That's not great. It's like that little thing in Men in Black. Pichoo! Shroop.
Please don't do that to me.
Pichoo!
Oh, stop.
I'll come back with a book in a moment when I think of one.
I think it's really okay.
Additionally, it's made in Australia.
I feel like that should have come first.
Oh. Well...
That would have explained a lot.
Oh, I don't know.
Just as in, like, standards and possibilities.
They do. They are a little less...
Different standards. Just explains, like, the language thing.
Yeah, that's where I was going to talk about, the language thing. Australian standards of profanity are just slightly different. They're a little... less concerned.
I need a code word for understatement. Otherwise, I'm just going to be saying understatement over and over and over again.
Should you just say, that right there is a teacup?
Sure.
Anyways, yeah.
I love my sister dearly.
It comes from our favorite continent down under. It's made in our favorite continent down under. And this is super important to understand, that it is made in Australia by Australians, and it's actually for Australians too.
Again, I feel like that should have come first.
I
don't know.
And if you like My Big Fat Greek Wedding, you'll like this movie.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, it's in a similar vein, romantic comedy.
So I'll just call my mother and let her know. So us? I don't know.
Well, it's I say that, I said it, and then I have already started regretting saying it. It is in that vein. It's a little more intense than My Big Fat Greek Wedding, actually.
Oh, really? That's fascinating. I think I have some official complaints now.
Oh, wow. The dramaticness of the interfamily clashing is a little stronger.
Rachel just did horrible things to her knuckles to demonstrate. Oh, stop!
And the implications are a little more intense. I would call this film a triumph of secularism, but that doesn't mean
that bodes very ill.
No, not necessarily. It does if you're. You and I are quite religious people, I would say.
Good lord, that's a loaded term.
I know.
I think the way you said it, I would deny that outright.
Okay. So, we're not quite religious people. We take our faith seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
Sure.
Okay, I think we take what we believe about who God is, to heart. And it forms things in our souls.
I like that.
Yeah, and so this film sets that issue aside, and puts
souls.
Just religious activity and like religion as soul formation, like the thing that by which you have your soul formed. It sort of puts that aside and does what most things do in our age and says love. Says that love of any sort.
This is going against all of my philosophical instincts, as in, like, then can you call it love? Is that actually love?
I know.
What if we define love differently?
You and I have really thought about this a whole lot, but I think in the modern mindset, there is this like...
Is it possible to set aside anything religious?
Yeah, And so actually this was originally a play that was written in... I'm just gonna go right now. I'm switches to the minor spoilers.
I love how it sounds like you just completely disregarded everything I just...
No, I'm about to address it. Well, so we're gonna go right to the medium spoilers because there's some crucial pieces of information that should be conveyed to talk about approaching this film. So here we go. We're going. Are we ready?
Never.
That was my chest, folks. So the film is about a Muslim girl and a Greek Orthodox boy falling in love. I say girl and boy. They're a man and woman. They're in their mid-30s, okay? Falling in love, and I
see what you mean by just chucking that aside.
Right.
Okay.
And additionally, I think I would rather see love as a production of than like hate and murder, right? Like I am not a proponent of... I don't think that people should go about murdering each other on the basis of religion, on the basis of faith or anything. I think like murder is bad. Just all around. Yeah. And it's interesting too, right? So this is based on a series of 3 plays. The second play is called The Wedding, and the third play is called The Baby. And the first one I think is just called Alex and Eve. And then like Alex.
This sounds like major spoilers to me.
It's a romantic comedy.
Yeah.
It's not a romantic tragedy.
You just spoiled that there's a baby.
No, I didn't. This is based on the first play.
Yeah. Oh, just the first play.
Right.
Yeah, but you spoiled like the rest of the story. We know how it ends.
That's it! Actually, you don't, because I haven't told you.
Therefore.
You have guessed, Ruth. You've surmised, but perhaps you don't know.
I feel like the people who are upset about spoilers would agree to disagree with you.
I don't. I'm one of those people, even, Yeah. Okay. So, so the play is written by Alex Lykos, is his name.
Did he just put himself into the title?
I think the protagonist's name is Alex, but I don't believe that he's married to someone who's Muslim.
Why would he name the main character Alex?
I think it's a popular Greek name. Alexander the Great, for starters.
We'll just go right back there then. Speaking of 3 plays, that's in the Greek tradition.
Oh my gosh, it's in the Greek tradition! Trilogies!
I made a mistake.
Okay, I just got really excited. Yeah. Calming down. Okay.
That's called The Classicist, everybody.
Ooh, it's gonna be good. So I do, and he wrote it because he was seeing this tension in between these peoples, and he was writing a story of reconciliation. And it was very popular. The play was popular in Australia.
I forgot that this was in Australia.
I know.
I was completely derailed by the religious groups.
The film was also kind of popular in Australia. And the thing is, that's Australia. And where are we?
My apartment.
Not Australia.
Sorry, you keep doing the thing where you say something and my brain just wipes.
Oh, sister. Okay.
That's not a you thing. That's definitely a me problem.
Okay, here we go. Burp. That was a different sound effect.
She just did the mind wipe thing from Men in Black.
Same thing earlier. I've forgotten the sounds I made earlier. Anyways, okay, so he was seeing this tension, this religious tension with people who like moderates in both, religions, and then, meeting, and he was sort of talking about like, so it's a story to sort of help process coexisting, and it is a story about loving your neighbor, but which, again, it's really weird because it definitely is like, maybe don't hold so tightly to your religious beliefs such that you hate the people who hold the opposite beliefs. But then it's like, the hope here is that there will be a little more love in the world. And it's just interesting. I think it's a worthy thing to consider and a message for our times.
I feel like we've stepped beyond conveying the content of the movie.
You're correct. Rachel's gone off in an odd spiral.
As good as this is.
I know, we have to get back to the film.
For once, I am not derailing.
I think it's a good thing to think about. The film is. What did I just?
Those words.
I know. It's not the content of the story.
I'm not saying it's wrong to draw implications. That just went much farther than we normally do.
It did. Yes. Okay. So, do you think the audience needs more background information, Ruth?
Sound effects, side effects,
nothing.
Visual effects?
Nothing really big. It's filmed in Australia.
Filming style?
So you get... it's a romantic comedy. It's filmed in the style of a romantic comedy.
No, like the way the camera works.
It's a normal thing, I think. Nothing outstanding, per se.
Oh, there's a lot of different romantic comedies.
Okay, think the stereotypical one.
Oh my gosh, from what period?
The 2010s?
Okay, see, that's pretty different than, 5 years before.
Okay, like, what movies have I seen that are romantic comedies?
You're asking the wrong person.
I haven't seen that many, to be fairly honest.
What about the one that was, the guy, David Tennant, and on the island?
It's not like that at all.
See?
The Decoy Bride. See? You're correct. I do love that one.
That's a good one.
It's more like You've Got Mail. Which is from the 90s.
My head went to Blue's Clues.
Oh, sister.
So that's where my head
Ruth,
is
we're
at.
up to 3 or 4 Oh Sisters at this point. The count is racking up. Okay, switching. Should we switch? Do we think the people... Oh, yeah.
Let's
information
go.
to know is important.
Oh, wait,
hang on. Based on a series of plays. And it's, yeah. Okay, let's go! Bet to the major spoilers. Okay. This film begins with a Greek Orthodox family attending church, and they, they're lighting candles, and then there's then they go out of the church and they have a picnic or something. They're at a church picnic, and they're Greek. And here's the kicker: the parents immigrated to Australia, but the kids grew up in Australia, so the kids have Australian accents. But the parents have Greek Australian accents.
This is wretchedly Australian.
So it's really I know. So in my brain, my Big Fat Greek Wedding, they have American accents. And then it's kind of a cultural experience in that you kind of get used to Australian as an accent for people who aren't performing. Yeah. Which is odd because they are performing. Yeah. But it's anyways. So then you switch over and we witness a Muslim wedding, and I have never seen any depiction of a Muslim wedding before. Apparently they happen outside, and there are drums and there are fire. It was very exciting. There are fire. There's a fire blower. I don't know.
Is that common?
I don't know. I don't know how accurate that was quite as, but people are not calling it out as incorrect. They're like, they're not like saying like, no.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's quite exciting. And then in both situations, there's a guy in the crowd at the Greek family, and they're like, hey, when are you going to get married? And they tease him, and then there's a girl on the other side, and they're like, it's, your little brother got married before you. And she's like,
that is a really classic unfortunate problem.
We find out that the Greek guy, whose name is Alex, yes, Alex and Eve are their names. Isn't that lovely?
Noted.
He teaches at a school, and his friend calls him in the middle of teaching, and he answers the phone. I was like, okay. I don't think I've ever had a teacher just answer. Well, I have for never just like a friend who calls them and is like, hey, we're going to the club tonight. And then the guy's like, no, I'm not. And then the next scene is him at the bar. At the club with his friend because it didn't work out. And then we have our meet cute where she pulls out. I hate the phrase meet cute.
I was about to say that's one you've never used before.
I actually loathe it. I just think of meat cutlets every time. I'm not even kidding. Meat cutlets, meet cute. Oh my goodness, cannot.
Are you gonna recover this?
So they meet. And, he accidentally pulls the chair out from under her, and there's a whole exchange, and it's awkward.
As you do? What?
Yeah.
That's kind of hard to do, if I'm honest.
They were reaching for the same chair, and then in a crowd, and they meet, and they have they connect, and, they go and they look up at there's a famous bridge in Australia. I learned about the Sydney Bridge, the bridge in Sydney, that apparently is, the guy is talking about how his parents came under that bridge when they came to Australia.
Yeah.
And she said something similar. So apparently it's sort of like the Peace Arch in St. Louis.
Okay.
Or no, like the Statue of Liberty. It's like the Statue of Liberty in America where, you see it and you're like, yes, I'm in Australia, and a place where I will, grow my family, and when you see the Statue of Liberty. Okay, so they're talking about it, and they find out that they're both, she's from Beirut. Her family's from Beirut. She's from Australia. Family's from Beirut, and his family's Greek. And I'm trying to remember, Beirut's in Lebanon, right? Rachel.
I'm sorry. I got distracted by the light in your eyes.
What? You just keep getting aggressively distracted.
And I just made eye contact, and I couldn't look away, and you were still talking, and then because my face went blank, I completely derailed you.
I guess we're having a day, guys. Welcome to the podcast.
As opposed to the previous days.
Where we weren't.
Those were nights.
And we woke up this morning for the first time, Ruth. So she drives him home, and they go and they get food or something, and then she drives him home, and they both still live with their parents, so it's not awkward. And there's this guy who's putting his trash in someone else's trash can, and she starts yelling at him. She's like a lawyer, and it turns out to be his dad. Oh my God. So that was awkward. And he leans in to kiss her, and then she shakes his hand. Despite their chemistry, she shakes his hand.
That totally makes sense.
Meanwhile, the next day, one of Alex's relatives has taken him to go lift weights. I don't know why I made that note. That's just a scene. He's at school. He invited her the previous night to come and talk to the kids about her job because she's a high-flying lawyer. And she said, no, thank you. But she shows up at school the next day, and he's so delighted. And she explains, and this gets never addressed, but she's like, who in here wants to help people? and, like, make progress in the world. And then nobody raises their hand, and then the guy's like, who in here wants to make money? And they all raise their hands. And that's just, I guess, out there as a thought. The kids, meanwhile, have already addressed this man's dating life and are like, you should be dating someone. He's like, let's move on. And they identify. They're like, this is the one. This is so great. And they, like, shake hands as she goes out of the class. And then the students are like, you were supposed to kiss her goodbye. And he's like, okay.
Okay.
Next day, there's, like, a baptism at the church.
He's Greek Orthodox?
He's Greek Orthodox. Okay. And, so we follow his story a little at this point. And, his students play a big role. And they, one of his students is Muslim. And she has gotten engaged already.
Mm-hmm.
And she just explains, she's excited. It's what's happening. Yeah. And just like it's happening in a year or so. And then he asks, there's some dialogue, and she's like, oh no, a good Muslim girl would never fall for someone who wasn't Muslim, because it makes you sad, because the parents would get so angry. Yeah, so both of them have both the Alex and Eve are nervous that if they start dating, their parents will, like,
why did they go on a date again?
They have friends. They both have friends who set them up.
Friends.
I know, it's those friends. They decide to go on a date anyway. And as Eve is leaving for the date, we find out that her family's on Skype with their other family in Beirut. Well, not their other family, their friends in Beirut.
Okay.
And this friend is Eve's fiance, who she does not want to marry.
Good.
So she just leaves. She actually talks to him at first, because the mom says, you have to talk to him. She says, no! And she does anyway. And then she leaves, and they go and they walk that arch together that they saw at night, because they could apparently climb on top of it, and it's wild. You have a little chain thing, and you go over so you don't fall off, because it's super, super high. And Alex is afraid of heights. It's a whole thing. Yep. And then, so they kiss on top of the bridge, and then the next scene, it's like the transition is like, a little kiss, and then the next scene is her dancing with the vacuum cleaner. Just dancing with the vacuum cleaner. It's really exciting. And then her parents walk in to see her dancing with the vacuum cleaner, because she's vacuuming. And they look kind of weirded out, and then they start dancing with her. Which is, interesting. Alex then takes his class to the mosque. Ooh. There's a lot of great dancing in this movie, actually. It encourages one to dance in communities of dancing.
That's cool.
Yeah, and, like, both parents are, like, they're dancing, and it's a whole thing. So he then takes his class to the mosque, and it's a field trip, but also an excuse to find out more about Islam.
Yep.
And we know, but he doesn't know, but the imam, the guy in charge of the mosque, is actually Eve's dad.
That's a problem.
Oh no, he might not be the guy in charge. He's the guy giving the tour for sure.
Okay.
But he's also, like, he leads his family in prayer at home and stuff.
Yeah.
He's
well, that's just dad.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. So they go out again that night to a Greek dancing place, and then she gets home, and her mom starts freaking out because she thinks that it's not good, and it's bad, and she has to leave, and Mom thinks that Alex is going to leave Eve just like her boyfriend before this, whose name was Greg.
Oh, Greg.
I know. It was
Greg.
Exactly, Greg. And so Eve then sits Alex down. Again, they're by the bridge. And she asks, where is this going? We don't want to, get in trouble and get hurt. So they go, and so it's like, right, so let's go talk to our parents. So he takes her right there. They're going to go talk to his parents.
Okay, then.
So they go and they talk to his parents. And at first, they think it's going to be okay, right? He's like, it's gonna be fine. So he takes her in, and then because of some awkward situations, he doesn't say that she's a Muslim or anything.
Oh, no.
And then it comes out through he tells them at one point, kind of like, well, you know, this is her, she's this person, and there's like an explosion of, you know, emotion, and mom chokes and has to go to the hospital.
Oh.
It's a whole thing, and then they're
Okay.
like, well, that couldn't have gone worse. His dad is really, you know, upset.
Yeah.
Then Eve tells her parents that they want to move in together because they're in love, Ruth. And there's all we get of that conversation is a scream in the house. Then so the Greek guy Alex sleeps in his car that night, and he Eve's brother shows up and like intimidates him, and because they all come and it's like, you gotta leave her alone. And Alex tried really hard. He's just sitting in the corner of his car and he's like, I'm not here. It was chaos. Mom brings him breakfast in the car though, so that's nice. And then it's interesting too because you see like the cost of their relationship on the family's reputation even in the Muslim community. They just sort of give like hints at this at one point where, you know, people aren't really talking to her dad, and you know, it was just sad because actually her dad is a really lovely person and he comes off really well in this story. He which I think is a really good thing. I feel like Muslim men are often stereotyped poorly, and so he is the understanding one of the mother and father in the among her parents, and so they have a sit down, both of them do, and she and her dad does, and his dad's like, she's like, I'm in love, and she's crying, and he's like, well, let's meet them, let's meet the parents, let's see if we can, and he does think, he's like, what if I made a mistake, letting you go to school with the other kids or whatever, but he says, let's meet them, and so they have a meeting, they sit down, actually, it's for tea, both bring baklava.
Excellent.
And there's some debate about which one's better.
That
doesn't go well either. The conversation, because both of them, the Greek family sees the Middle East. It's like historic rivalry, right? Turkey and Greece. They trace it all the way back, and the Greeks, the Greek father doesn't think that the Arab people are good people or whatever, and the same way the other way, and they're fighting with each other, and it's bad. But both the mom and the dad, so Alex's mom and Eve's dad are like, wait, I don't know, we should think about this. She ends up crying, and it's a whole thing, and she tries to the conversation is interrupted, their tea is interrupted by the fiance coming to visit from Beirut. And Alex is like, well, okay, and they want to say goodbye, and they do say goodbye, and then they don't really have the opportunity to say parting words, but she meets up with him at the gym to say goodbye at some point. That doesn't go well. That's when the Chaucer stuff happens. But then they part ways. It's a whole thing. It's a disaster. Because they don't talk again for, I think it's like a month or so. I don't know. She's preparing for the wedding, and he is all upset, and she gets her legs waxed more peacefully than I've ever seen anyone get their legs waxed. It was wild. Both of them are, upset still. And then his own brother, Alex's brother, comes to his apartment, and he does say, he's like, I think it takes a lot of courage to do what you did. He said, because he himself, he's gonna get a divorce.
Really?
Yeah, because Alex's brother's marriage is falling apart, and so it's like there is, talking about how there is value to love in a relationship beyond marrying just because of obligation. That often doesn't lead to happy things. And because Alex's brother is the one who they were all looking at. Like, the sister in My Big Fat Greek Wedding, right? Athena is her name.
Whoa.
With, like, a bunch of children. It's a whole thing. He's that guy. So, and she's dressed up really beautifully for the wedding, and her brother, Eve's brother, looks at her and says, "Are you ready? Are you all right, sis?" And she doesn't say anything. She just looks really sad, and it's like he knows, you know. And so then he asks that we're back with Alex, and he's talking to his students. It's sort of the graduation for the students, I think. It's a whole thing, and we've seen them talk about this situation a little more, and he asks his Muslim student what something Eve said to him in Arabic meant, and she was like, "Oh, it means I love you." Oh my gosh. And you know, and he's like, "Okay, I guess, well," and so then he decides he's gonna go to the wedding. It's a whole thing. And he's leaving, and then her brother shows up. And even the students think there's gonna be a throwdown. And so the students are like, "No, it's okay, it's a great guy, it's a thing," and they're trying to defend him, and the brother's like, "If you mess this up, then you're in trouble." So it turns out Eve's brother is now supporting this other guy. He's realized, he thinks it's gonna be okay. So then Alex goes to get his parents, and they drive to the wedding. There's a whole fight about getting there, and so, but they get there, and it's a whole kerfuffle, and the brother, so he gets there, and then of course the mom of Eve's mom is like, "Who invited you? What are you doing here?" And her brother, Eve's brother, stands up and says, "I invited him," you know. And then the fiance, of course, is upset, wonders what's going on, and so then Alex says, you know, "I love you," but he says it in Arabic. And then Eve doesn't say it back. And there's this heartbreaking moment where it's like, you know, so she doesn't say it back. And it's sort of like 15 seconds of horror, and he walks away, and all the Greeks walk away. And then they have to say their vows, I think, 3 times in the ceremony, and she can't say it the 3rd time, so it's a whole. She has to. She says, you know, "Alex," and what's great, what's interesting is the dad leads her through the crowd to go to see Alex, because there's a whole crowd, and the mother is like, "What are you doing?" But I do think, because the dad did say, you know, he wants to make sure that Eve actually wants to get married.
Yeah.
He is allowing that situation to unfold, and so, you know, so he leads her to Alex, and meanwhile the mom is like, "What is happening?" So here's the thing. Then it ends with them running to the car and driving away, and everyone dancing at the reception, at the wedding site. Everyone they've come to terms with life, and they're dancing. Okay, so that's the end. So they don't actually get married, in this movie, and there is no sequel at the moment, but there is a sequel play, so they could do one about the marriage.
Interesting.
Which, I mean, so they discuss at a different point in the movie, right, what would happen to the kids? Would they grow up Muslim, or would they grow up Greek Orthodox, right?
Yeah.
Or, and, you know, where would they get married? In a church? And then the Greek Orthodox woman says, or in a mosque, and then the Muslim woman is like, "We don't get married in a mosque," you know? It's a really intense, you know, situation. These different what will the name of the child be, right? Will it be a Greek name, or so there's different matters to navigate. But yeah, so that's the movie. What do you think, Ruth?
Already?
Yeah, that's the end. I think it's the end of the film. It's
Well, yeah.
It's a pretty.
I feel like you just told me some important things.
I know. It's a pretty, you know, standard romantic comedy, but the tension is quite
Yeah.
tense throughout it. And there's
the cost of romantic comedy.
There's a whole side plot with their friends who got them together, comparing themselves to these two, right? Because the girl in the friendship and their friends in that relationship wants to get married, and then he doesn't, and they're like, well, whatever then. And then they break up, but then they get back together. And so the comedy also in Eve's friend, who, is her best friend, comes to all the events, but wears super short shorts and, like, sleeveless dresses and stuff, and like, crop top dresses and stuff, right? And the mother will just casually put a shawl around her waist or around her just throughout the whole thing. It's,
like friend.
Yeah. So anyways, what do you think of based off my description?
It sounds like a hopeful movie, as just like, here's some cultural things you're probably not aware of.
It's true. It was a very culturally informative, perhaps, film. Although it's always dangerous getting your information from media, from movies and, but I don't know. It helps build sympathy, I think, certainly. An understanding for people. We don't really live in a community with a strong Muslim or Greek presence in our city. There isn't quite.
It's there, though.
It is. It's true. I think it's interesting, too, that, they were seeing, through the lens of eternity, they've been at war, these sides of the Aegean Sea, right? The Greeks going over to Troy and Troy, the battle, and the war of Troy, the Trojan War, the War of Troy.
Is that what they're going back to?
That's how it stretches back that far.
Goodness.
Yeah. It's a whole thing. Yeah. So, but you haven't given me your thoughts on the story. You like it? The story generally? Or you, I don't know. You don't like it? Mediocre?
I honestly hadn't formed an opinion yet.
Sister. We're supposed to be contemplating.
I was. I am contemplating. It's I don't know yet.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll have to ask you at the beginning of next podcast for your thoughts. Well, I need some here. Do you have any,
I like how they represented the dad. That seemed good. That's actually consistent with some Muslim parents I've encountered.
Yeah.
Not personally, but testimonies from people.
Yeah. I appreciate
girls
that
in particular and their fathers. Yeah.
That it's actually okay.
Yeah.
Right. I thought
their
that
dads
was
do actually care about their well-being. It's not just
right.
You shall be married.
Yeah.
Well, there's always, of course, people like that, but
yeah. It's very kind. And then I thought it did a good job of not villainizing everybody.
I like that too.
Or even everybody's beliefs.
Yes.
Right? It was, I think that was a comfort. Yeah.
Good.
Well, folks, I guess you'll have to listen. I will remember to tell Ruth to say something about her thoughts on this film. Next podcast. Closing thoughts, because we've had some thoughts, I think.
Some thoughts.
As far as an Australian film, how do you think it differs from an American film?
Well, I don't know if I was able to tell that from verbal recounting.
That's
it
true.
seems way less antagonistic in general, and I'm wondering if that is like an Australian, or just like a rest of the world versus anything in the States.
Synthesis rather than combativeness.
Yeah. It just seemed way more fruitful. I don't know how to describe that.
It wasn't about the end of the world.
Yeah.
But, you know, we get rom-coms every day.
There's still high stakes, but it's just like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you all enjoyed the listening, and that, you know, if you watch Alex and Eve and have a different opinion, feel free to contact us through, you know, Instagram or Twitter and say, you know...
We don't have a Facebook. No. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, Facebook's a different animal. Facebook seems really involved, Ruth.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know if I'm mentally prepared to do the battle of the Facebook.
That's chill.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope that you know, tune in again next week. You can find us both on Instagram and Twitter at Lost in Theaters. Feel free to leave us a review.
We're very lost.
Follow us on whatever thing you listen to us on, if you can. And should we close with a song? Ruth?
Yeah. This seemed more like a subdued episode. I think that fits that.
You think so? I don't know where that came from. To be honest. Well, this has been Lost in Theaters. Goodbye!